Thankfully, Kamala Harris was there to explain the war between Ukraine and Russia.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong. So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong.
And after Biden's first State of the Union speech, Van Whitelash-Jones weighed in.
First of all, I thought that was Joe Biden at his best. Uncle Joe is back. I thought he was being the leader. Listen, nobody believes in these American ideals more than Joe Biden. It showed tonight.
He's back?
Donald Trump does pose an extra threat to this. It's not hypothetical. Barack and I think it's a right for people to have bad health care. What must be what? And if we do, and I'm sure we can proclaim the palmist, with the palmist who wrote these following words.
As you know, the left-wing voters in San Francisco recalled 3 school board members because they were too woke for these woke voters.
In San Francisco's first recall election since 1983, about 25% of eligible voters cast their ballots in early voting, a low turnout for an election that could drastically change the city's school board. The question voters had to answer was whether to recall 3 school board members of the San Francisco School Board, after proponents say the board failed students during the pandemic by focusing on the idea of renaming schools instead of planning to bring students back to class, then changing the admissions policy at Lowell High School from merit-based to a lottery system.
They are so egregiously incompetent, so we need to get them out now, and we have. The voters have spoken.
This is from the LA Times about the recall race that I entered. If a majority of voters had decided to recall Newsom in the September 14 election, then the state would have been in the hands of a bombastic conservative radio host with no experience in public office. That would be me, with no political experience. Unlike AOC, I wasn't a bartender. That's undemocratic, to say the least. So Republicans want to recall a Democrat governor. That's undemocratic. Liberal voters want to recall left-wing school board members in San Francisco, and on the Today Show, Kamala Harris was asked, why is it we don't increase our own energy production?
The Ukrainian ambassador has said the only way to really hit Putin where it hurts is to go after his oil and gas sector. And some senators agree, Republican and Democrat. Senator Joe Manchin, for example, mentioned that the U.S. is still currently buying approximately 600,000 barrels of crude and other petroleum products every single day. Is that on the table? Is that something that the administration would continue or would consider in terms of further sanctions, cutting off the oil and gas part of the economy for Russia?
Well, as you know, that on this issue, for example, we applaud Germany in terms of what it has done as it relates to Nord Stream 2, as it relates to what we need to do domestically as well as what we need to do in terms of this issue generally. We have, as the President said, reevaluated what we're doing in terms of the strategic oil reserve here in the United States to make sure that it will not have an impact, or we can mitigate the impact on the American consumer. But let's take this one step at a time, understanding that right now on the issue of energy, our allies have stood firm and unified in a way that many of the pundits didn't predict would happen, to ensure that we are unified in our approach to this issue.
At the State of the Union speech, Joe Biden on the police.
We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police. It's to fund the police. Fund them.
Biden during the campaign, July 7, 2020.
But do we agree that we can redirect some of the funding?
Yes, absolutely.
Some on the left not happy with the State of the Union speech.
But there was very little mention of voting rights. Does this mean that that issue is on the back burner for the administration at this point in time?
The president has been very clear. He was clear again last night in front of the members of the United States Congress. They must pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act.
And some were very, very unhappy with the State of the Union speech.
If you were paying attention, Biden not once mentioned black people, African Americans, Negro, anything in that speech. And I was kept thinking to myself, what a difference 300 days makes. When Biden gave his speech on the 100th anniversary of him taking office, there was a huge section in there about speaking to, quoting George Floyd's daughter, about my dad's going to make history, and really hammering home. I think his quote was, "We have all seen the knee of injustice on the neck of black America." That is how strong that passage was in Biden's speech to black people and about these issues supporting black people in the 100-day speech. Not one word in this speech, even when he was speaking about historically about college and universities, he used the acronym.
They don't want black folks voting.
Well, that's all for today's Larry Elder on YouTube. We're now showing a shorter version of our show on YouTube. That's after being censored and demonetized for a whole year. Full episode can be watched on our website, epictv.com/Larry Elder. That's epictv.com/Larry Elder. You can also find out where to watch our show live on cable in your city at ntd.com/TV. All the links are in the description down below.